Okay, welcome to Firefighting Today, the weekly roundtable where we discuss all things fire service related. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff tonight. We've got a panel that is prepared to talk about what's on your mind. So it's kind of a roundtable. It's wide open tonight. We encourage you, if you are watching us on YouTube, we encourage you to send in a YouTube comment. We can bring your discussion right into the panel. And if you are on Twitter tonight, if you want to use the hashtag FFT on your mind. So FFT on your mind is what we're looking for YouTube. So let's get started. All right, my name is Peter Lamb. I'm the host for tonight's roundtable. I am the host of PeteLamb.com and the host of the Firefighter Training Podcast. So you can find me there. Adam, say hello.
Good evening, everybody. Adam Ganaway on the Kellogg Fire Department here in Kellogg, Iowa, 100% volunteer.
All right, good stuff. Ethan, say hello.
Hi, Pete. Ethan Bansek from Lorain, Ohio, student of the trade and founder of Passed On Fire Training.
All right, and if anybody's not over there at Pass It On Fire Training, it's a great place. Check it out. Ethan's got a lot of good stuff he puts out every day. Joe Starnes.
Joe Starnes, Oak Grove Volunteer Fire Department, a proud member of Chief Perry Davis's Palace, and also one of the project managers for Project Kill the Flashover.
Excellent, excellent. Rob Fling, say hello.
Good evening, everybody. Rob Fling, Chief Dix Hills Fire Department, Long Island, New York, and founder and president of FacePeaceOn.com.
All right, good stuff. And last but certainly not least, Warren.
Hi, Warren Whitley, retired assistant chief from Prince William County, Virginia, and currently relaxing in South Georgia where it's somewhat warm.
Oh, yeah, I'm a little jealous about that, Warren. A little jealous about the warm in Georgia.
Yeah, so, I'm outside on the screened-in porch at my uncle's.
Yeah, I'm feeling bad. You see if it's conveying that I'm feeling that way. You know what I mean? So we got a couple of things to do tonight. We got a lot of stuff we can talk about. I've got a couple of feelers, but I understand some folks on the panel do have some things. What's on your mind? Just an open discussion. We're ready to discuss any and all topics. Is anybody on the panel got something that's on their mind? We'll try to get 2 or 3 of these. Warren's got a sinister grin and what's on his mind. So let's hear it, Warren.
I mentioned this as a potential topic a month or so ago about kind of reconfiguring or refocusing what truck companies do, in light of all the fire behavior information that is finally filtering out to the U.S. Fire Service. I sent Joe a draft of an article he looked at yesterday, and he was probably amused as well. The one thing I was looking at is maybe we need to refocus the truck from being the open everything up guys to let's figure out how we keep a vent-limited fire closed up, get our searches done with weird things like carrying your tick and a hose line, heresy. Things along that line. We need to really reinvent what the truck company is doing to support the fire attack. So I'll throw that grenade out there.
All right. Well, and you're right. I mean, for many years, we've been traditional. Engines do this, trucks do this, and that's been the mindset. And that has really been the training mindset for all of us, I think. I mean, to some degree. Rob, you operate engine and truck companies. What are your thoughts about that?
It's actually not a bad idea. I like it. Actually, all the engines in my department, believe it or not, operate as a squad. We have a full complement of truck tools. Every truck is outfitted with the same amount of hose, and we operate on order of arrival. If we have an obvious fire, the first engine establishes their water supply and stretches. The second due engine will operate as a truck. Normally, the truck goes in with the engine. I agree with Warren. We've gotten away from well, I have all of these nice tools in my hand, and I'm just going to start breaking stuff. We've basically left the building as closed up as possible. I even have the guys so much thinking right now that as we're masking up and as the line's being charged, we're shutting the front door. So some of this stuff is actually starting to sink in, I think.
Oh, that's excellent. You know, here's the point. That's great to hear you say that, Rob. I'm certainly not surprised coming from you. But, you know, so many people are talking about this. It sounds to me like you're actually taking action and doing things a little differently, right? The whole learning piece is an observable behavioral change. Sounds like your behaviors are changing, and that's pretty.
Honestly, for me, it's a big experiment because I'm going to try it. You know, what does it hurt shutting the door? It's not going to hurt anything. You know, my guys aren't taking 35-foot extension ladders to the rear of the building anymore and smashing them right through the windows right away. You know, we're waiting for the engine officer to get a good knock on this thing before we start opening up.
Yeah, no, that's again, you're changing your, and you're right. You know, for a lot of us, even the supposed experts, if you will, and that's in air quotes, you're actually trying it, so you're going to get your own results. You're going to figure out what it is.
It actually worked well for me a few weeks ago because we had an attic fire. It was a bedroom fire extended up into the attic. It would have been a bread and butter fire. However, we lost water, so this thing took off on us. And if we had everything nice and closed up, we made one little inspection hole in the attic where we started darkening it down. We lost water. The fire started taking off on us again. I pulled everybody out of the building, stretched to 2.5, and I hit it through the attic vent and the bedroom window with the 2.5 from the outside, and I damn near put the fire out. All we had to do was go inside and do mop up. So ask me, I'm a believer.
Cool, great stuff. That's great testimonial stuff. That's good stuff to hear. Joe Steins, you got any comments on what Warren was talking about?
Well,
that's like the funniest thing I've ever asked.
Yeah, I probably not what you expected because now I know why Warren's not at home.
Warren's going to light another cigar. We got time.
Yeah. Warren left home because he knew he was going to bring this up. I told him today if 3 truck companies drove up in his yard, don't be worried at all.
Right. Yeah, they're out to get him.
You know my stance on this. I'm really into let's manage the fire behavior in the sense that it does best for us. We don't need to be fighting fire in anything that we're not trying to figure out how to manage it. Not a race to get to the fire room with the science we know and the tools we have. So to me, it makes sense. Truck companies should worry about making access. They should worry about controlling fire growth. They should worry about putting the fire in the decay mode and accessing for our customers and our firefighters. I don't think, like Brunacini said, we don't have to have a major personality change here. We simply have to focus on the fire science as it relates to what we do. And nobody's cutting a hole big enough to vent fire on a vent-limited fire anymore. So, but if we think we're doing that, we're kidding ourselves. I don't care if we're tacking it from the unburned side, whether we're cutting a hole in the roof, what we're doing. We're not venting these fires enough to take care of the massive amount of fuel that's coming out of them. So we have to put the fire in the decay mode, and who's best to first figure that out and put that building in that method other than the truck company. I think it's time to redefine.
Wow, good stuff. Yeah, talking about ventilation, Joe and I had a discussion this week, a fire very close by to me. We vent the attic space, and the radio message then is there's 3/4 plywood on the attic floor we can't penetrate. So there was a good effort that took, I don't know, however long it took to do that. But pretty not very uncommon to have an attic floor in place. So now you just it's weeks and days and hours before you get an adequate vent hole in. So yeah, I get it. Ethan, student of the trade, what are you thinking about this discussion?
Well, I completely agree, guys. And even here, we're down staffing pretty much here, so our ladder's closed half the time, and we had a job on Friday. It was a small room and contents and we needed to do ventilation there, and that went to engine. So again, this is not just truck company. This is, and I'm sure Adam can agree too. I don't think he is a truck. This is not just trucks. We need to have a disciplined operation here. Engine does the water, the truck waits, does the vent, wait till we have a good knock on the fire, and it's going to be a successful job. So it's just about bringing the research home and getting it out there.
Cool, very good. Yeah, and it may not always be truck vent. It may be, I think Joe used the term at one point in a discussion where he said, the truck company is the airflow management or air track management or something of that nature. We called it something different because really the task has changed a little bit. So that's there. Adam, are you doing anything different? Are you doing anything different after these discussions we've had?
It's interesting talking about this. Yesterday we did some training for our juniors, and our chief happened to be around, and he actually chimed in. We were doing some size up with the juniors and how to do fire attack, and he actually talked to him about controlling the door. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and he's also a career firefighter for the neighboring town. So hearing that and then seeing them also paying attention to the new science is excellent.
Cool, very good. Hey Shane, not to put you on the spot, but since you dove in, let me throw this at you. We're talking about, should we redefine the definition and duties of the truck company based on the research that we're filtering out? Should we change the duties of the truck company a little bit, or change the way the truck company performs? What are your thoughts?
Well, I've been listening so far to what's being said, and I agree with everything that's being said, but I also wanted to kind of add that I think for many departments this has kind of been happening anyway. The role of the quint being brought into fire service more and more these days is it's blurred the line on the traditional truck company, making vehicles that can do truck operations and pumping operations, and kind of putting more companies into that multitask role. I think that that has blurred the line, plus what we're learning now, there's a possibility that maybe we should re-examine it. Now, some departments are probably never going to get rid of their truck operations. The truckies are just going to stay that way. The Jakes aren't going to let go, and it's just going to be what it is. But I think you'll start seeing more departments utilizing that quint setup and allowing themselves to be much more versatile and much more dynamic in the roles that they play.
Yeah, the quint gets a bad rap from large city departments where people think that the quint is not a multifaceted piece of apparatus. It's a plot. It's a management plot to steal manpower or put companies out of service or whatever. And so it really gets a bad rap in that regard. And quite frankly, it is a versatile piece of equipment. Good stuff. Warren, where do you want to go? Anything else you want to do on that? And we'll shift gears.
Yeah, there's two more points.
Sure.
One is I guess the focus of my thinking on this is to get rid of the firefighter-induced flashover. Since we have the overcarbureted rich environment from the high release rate fuels from the modern era, we bust everything. We don't make the fire go into decay. We give it air and make it bigger. If we didn't know where it was, the only good thing is we didn't know where it is. It's everywhere. The other point that kind of goes with this is I've been thinking about VEIS and that model, and I think we need to, along with this, take the V part out of enter and isolate and search. Meaning, if you have to break that window to get into the room to do your search, and you're especially not certain you can get across the room to close the door, or perhaps the door's not even there, well, now we have the situation where we can put the smoke blocker at the window before we enter, so we're not creating that new airflow and making things worse. And the other thing is, if you're going in that room, you have your tick and you have the hose line. Again, kind of smacking up against the side of the head of tradition. But let's think about the safety of the truckie going in to do that search. Let's put him in a environment that's viable, and he has a tool with him that if things go bad, he at least has something to fight with.
So a couple of questions on that, Warren. So you're suggesting that maybe we should slow down until apparatus gets fitted with more curtains and more of that sort of stuff, more of the blocking of the window. Maybe we should rethink it at least, or whatever. You're also saying bringing a hose line in. So I mean, you're really tipping that one upside down on its head a little bit. No, a whole lot. That was an exaggeration. A whole lot. What are you thinking?
Want to change? Let's go big.
All right, go. Yeah, I had a sign on my desk from years that said "Go big or go home." I love it. So I'm a fan of that. But really, that's I have some thoughts on. I have some thoughts on VEIS myself, and I'm suggesting it has something to do with the size of the department. And I would be so bold as to say that some small suburban departments may not even consider that tactic because they don't have the personnel to support that tactic. Large city departments, you've got simultaneous operations, you've got water on the fire, you've got multiple companies working. I believe it's valid. I believe it has saved lives. But I think when we start taking it out to Adams area, I think we're running some serious risk. Even in my department, where we were as high as 13 on a shift at one point and then down to 9 on another, I'm not sure we can support that tactic. Sending, it's a good tactic, and you could probably get a victim, but you're still talking about something. It's one man operating alone. Maybe there's a support person on the ladder. You're operating without a hose line in most cases. How many ticks does your department have? Somebody's got one on the inside crew. Do you have one to send in the window? So from my point, Warren, I was always a resource. I didn't think you could achieve it because of resource, not only because of the tactic. Joe, what are you thinking? You want to change the V to what? What do you want to do with that?
Just change the V to C. If you can manage or control the environment that you're in, then you can do tactics in that environment. If you can't manage or control that environment, this is not a race to the fire room anymore. I don't think we can predict that. So we need to manage that environment. If we can staff it, we choose it as a tactic, but we must be able to manage that environment. If we can't hang a curtain on the window when we take that window, then I don't know why we're doing it. And it's not that hard to put something there. I mean, it's just a matter of want to. This is like the days of the air pack when we had 2 on the truck, and they were there when it really got bad. It's that kind of transition for us in the fire service today. We know enough now to know that if we stop the fire growth, we got a better chance of controlling that fire. So it's all about growth and decay.
Yep. No, certainly. And Rob, you make a good point. We're talking about the Gordon Graham thing that comes up here on the panel now and again, the high risk, low frequency tactic. You made a comment, some of the folks that may not have as much experience. What are your thoughts on that, Rob?
Well, I never know what I'm going to get basically on my first due engine. I know once I bang a working fire, the cavalry's coming. But, if I have 3 guys or 4 guys, even on my first 2 pieces of apparatus that arrive, I don't know exactly what their experience level is going to be. So I would be very hesitant to send somebody in, especially a second floor window with fire on the first floor, without a line. If I have a known life hazard, I might actually try to get up the interior stairs. But at that point, I have to go back to the stuff that I've been reading, that I'm much better off concentrating my efforts on reducing that fire size and making that area much more tenable for anybody that happens to be upstairs. Plus, when I do send somebody upstairs, I know it's controlled. Need I say Black Sunday? Basically, those guys went up the interior of the building, but if they went in the exterior, the conditions were the same.
Right. No, I think that's important. Just a quick one here. Just let me respond to Johnny. Johnny, we got it. We did not pass our test, but we got it. So you are able to leave comments, and you are with us here. So thanks for that. Anything else on this topic? So we're talking about the truck company role. We're talking about VEIS. Anything else on this topic? Good stuff. Great discussion, Warren. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. What else? What's on your mind? Anybody got something on your mind? All right. Let me throw one out. All right, Ethan, you had one, but let me throw one out because it ties to what Warren said, and it ties to a lot. Joe and I had this discussion the other day. The new science has basically tipped us on our head, right? It's tipped the United States Fire Service on our head. And there's all sorts of discussion. Every forum, every piece of internet information you see has to do with that. Except today, we are killing people by heart attacks by the dump truck load. We have school buses of LODDs, all caused by non-catastrophic fire behavior, but we are doing something every day to kill firefighters. When are we going to address the health and wellness issue, which is really, I saw numbers just come by my face, 45%. At one point it was up to 55, 56%. We throw in cancer, if you want to talk about health and wellness. Rob's talking about 53%. When are we going to have that discussion? And why is that so difficult a discussion? I have nothing against. I mean, I'm a student of this new research and stuff. I'm all over this, and I'm trying to learn and I'm trying to progress. But certainly we need to think about it. Ethan, what was that stat you just threw by? It was quick. I didn't catch it.
Last year we had 87 line-of-duty deaths, and 77 of the 87 were non-suppression related, so medical.
All right. 77 of the 87 deaths last year. That's an interesting statistic. What are we doing to address that in our respective departments? We don't want to take the guy or gal that might be a little bit overweight. We want them to be a volunteer. We don't want to discourage them from not doing it. We don't want to discourage the older member because they were a charter member of the organization. We have a lot of excuses on why we don't do this, but I don't know. Anybody, what are your thoughts? That's just one I wanted to throw out on the table. So I thought it was a good change from the discussion. What else?
I think much of what we're starting to learn about modern fire behavior and the fuel loads is going to actually circle back to what we could talk about with our health. Years ago when we had natural fibers burning, it was a completely different animal, not only fire behavior-wise, but what was off-gassing in that. Today, it's all stuff. Not that any of it is safe to breathe, but the stuff today you can't even pronounce. And the majority of it's producing the hydrogen cyanide in the CO. I was on the phone with somebody this afternoon, and I always carry a CO meter. It's actually it's strapped right to my radios. The fire I was at last weekend, after the fire was knocked down, I was 30 feet from the house, and my CO meter was reading 22. I can only imagine what it was in that house, and nobody wants to wear their mask.
Right.
Come on.
Right.
I mean, just yes or no on the panel. Who's been to a job and left with a banging headache?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, everybody has it sometime. Well, guess what? You were poisoned. That's definitely the carbon monoxide headache hitting you. And it's time that we start to realize this stuff, and it's got to get out to everybody. Like I tell my guys when I give them the class that I teach, I can't make you do this. Maybe my guys, I can policy it, but I know it's not going to really fly. But it's an awareness class. The best I can do is get this information in your hands and you make the decision. And hopefully you make the right one, because we all have families.
That's a good
Rob,
concept.
Rob, you actually can make them. I've thrown guys off the fire ground out of the building because they wouldn't wear their SCBA during overnight.
I can.
Go away.
Right, right. Yeah, no, it is. It's, it's a discipline thing. It's an enforcement thing. It's uncomfortable when you have to do it, certainly, but it is there. I want to go back to this discussion, but the time delay thing. Let me take care of Johnny's question. He was talking about the Quint, so excuse me to let me backtrack just a second. So Johnny says we're a small urban department. We run an engine, Quint, 4 and 5 manpower. Engine does fire attack. Quint stretches back up and searches off the line. Ventilation, Rick, and other ops are left for mutual aid. It's not a perfect system, but it is working for them. And I think Johnny's department represents exactly what's going on in America today. I think that's the case. Also, just a little side message for John. I don't know, did you guys, was that your department that had a pretty good warehouse the other night? That's just a little side question there. But, all right, so it's the mask issue is part of it. What about getting physicals? What about figuring out if we're doing that? So there's an issue. That's a tough one. If you're in a career department, it's a labor issue. Suppose I find out I have a disease. Is it job related? If you're on the volunteer side, is it a financial issue? Can you pay for that? All of that. What do you think the barriers are to the health and wellness?
Well, let me just add something real quick on the health and wellness. As a 1500 compliant department, as mandated by the Department of Defense, we are required to do the annual physicals. But to be honest with you, the annual physicals are really kind of they just very basically skim the surface. We have individuals in my department who are overweight, and they still pass the physical. The physical itself they're fine. They pass the physical without any problems. It goes beyond the physical portion of it, though. You have to be doing the physical, the PT portion of it, and we're starting to enforce that, but we haven't gotten to the point where we can mandate it. Even being under 1500, we can't mandate it beyond that. We're fighting the union. We're fighting the internal politics of the situation. And for every one of us who's in good shape and works out the allotted time, we have the individuals who go and put on the show, so to speak, and they're still passing the physicals. So physicals alone aren't going to do it. They're going to get somebody in front of a doctor, but depending upon the doctor you get, we follow the full requirements of NFPA 1500, and we got guys who are still passing, and there's no getting them off the floor just based on the physical portion of it. So that's only part of the scenario that you really need to be looking at. Physicals alone aren't going to take care of it.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to you offline about that, because, we were doing the 1582 physical, and BMI comes into play and some other things. I don't disagree. You clearly need to do some physical fitness. I'm all over that. I think that's clearly a part of it. But I am a big proponent of the physical, and I just wonder if I was doing something different, because we did have some things that were there. How do you deal with this, Adam, in a small volunteer department? It becomes a money issue. It becomes you don't want to lose people. Is there any discussion at your level?
No, but if I'm correct with their new work comp deal, they got new type of insurance. I think ours is actually every 5 years. They have an outside outfit that comes in and does your blood draw, hearing check. They face piece test you also, and there's a few other things that they do. We just had them here a couple years ago, so they should be coming up pretty soon. And that's what we do here. We don't mandate it to take physicals. It's up to them if they want to do it.
Right. Okay. Talk about health and wellness. Johnny's talking about what about the whole suicide, PTSD, and mental behavior thing, which is lost in the weeds somewhere along the way. I think while we're having the health and wellness, we're also talking about our mental well-being. I think that's I think that's part of a discussion that needs to take place at a national level as well. So what are the solutions to this, right? We're talking about the problem. What are some solutions? So let's just see if we can frame the discussion. I'm talking about the folks dropping the heart attacks, right? So we screen them, we try to do something. Rob was going down the path, which is a little more long-term exposure, cumulative exposure of the cancer, the carcinogens, the cyanide, and that kind of stuff. Johnny's now throwing the health and wellness mental thing, and Shane threw in the PT part of the puzzle. So, I mean, this is really, I mean, we just discussed this for about 7 or 8 minutes, and we got a bunch of prongs in this whole discussion. Warren, what are your thoughts? Is this something we should be focusing on more than rapid intervention and whatever, I don't know, all the stuff that we talk about as a National Fire Service? What are your thoughts, Warren?
Well, absolutely, and especially now that I'm an old guy who occasionally still does fire training and interior fire attack. I mean, it's important for me. I'll get a physical on my own every year if my new little department doesn't support them. Although I have seen I've been impressed by some stuff they do. If you're not in shape or you have facial hair and a beard and can't pass your fit test, you're not authorized to wear SCBA and do interior fire attack. So they do have a lot of older guys that just drive and do other support functions. So that's a good step that they have taken. I'll work on them for physicals because I think they actually have a budget that could support it. But really, in the past, peer pressure has worked pretty well. If you got the guy that's overweight and the rest of the crew's PTing, you say, come along, dude, you're coming with us even if you're just walking. But we're all going to participate as a crew. You're not going to go sit and eat potato chips and watch TV while we go work out. The other thing my old department did was they hired a mental health specialist, with counseling training and all that stuff. So the mental health aspect in that department is pretty well taken care of. Anybody can call her anytime confidentially. She'll actually go out to station, do station visits quite regularly, just talk to crews, to BS with them and see what's going on. And, she's trained to pick out people that might be having some sort of difficulty. And she'll arrange to meet with them later to see what's up with them. So I think it is important, and I think it needs to have just as much focus as what we've been doing with fire behavior across the country, because we've seen the statistic of what's killing us. It's not necessarily the fires, although they are a big factor. It's our health and the stress we're under.
Right, absolutely. I'll toss this one to Shane or Rob. Yeah, I didn't want to downplay. When I was talking about Rob's thing, I was saying that cancer is a long term, but both Shane and Rob brought up the point that, we are well aware that cyanide specifically is a cardiac irritant. So even short exposure, either of you guys, I'll give it to Rob, I guess. Rob, you want to just clarify my comment? I was thinking cancer as a long term, but certainly the cyanide, as I know, is a cardiac irritant. Talk about that for a minute.
Absolutely. We always, up until very recently, the majority of the majority of firefighting deaths that was caused by a cardiac event. I always use the analogy of too much supersada and mozzarella sandwiches, and you were just going to have a heart attack. But what we're starting to find out now that some of these could actually be caused by hydrogen cyanide and CO. As much as 3 days after you go to a fire, you can have you can suffer sudden cardiac arrest.
Yeah. The cyanide is good news because it's got a real short half-life. You're right. I mean, that gets better.
But that's what's making it very difficult. Is it does leave the body so fast.
Right.
We're one of 4 departments in my area that do carry cyanide kits. Our medics, and once any one of the 4 departments in our area bang a working fire, all 4 of the paramedics from the neighboring departments all go to the scene, and we carry, I think it's 8 or 10 cyano kits right there. And, people are starting to call us for them. Well, I went on a mutual aid the other night that specifically requested our cyanide kit.
Yeah, no, it's got to happen. Go ahead, Shane.
I was just going to say the problem with it is that it's not just that they're called the toxic twins because they have a synergistic effect. It's the CO pushes out what oxygen is available, and then the hydrogen cyanide bonds at the cellular level so that even what oxygen does get through can't be metabolized at the cellular level to create the ATP necessary for cell life. And for reasons they still haven't figured out, it is really damaging to cardiac muscle more than everything else. So they first, the CO doesn't allow as much oxygen in the bloodstream, then the hydrogen cyanide takes away the cell's ability to make energy, and it creates a lot of cell death. And it's the two combined are crazy. But there's a firesmoke.org have partnered with with Ray Systems, and they're giving classes. It was there's a gentleman, a battalion chief at Columbia Fire in South Carolina, that's going around giving these classes, and it's an eye opener. And the cyanokits are doing wonders. He's got a story of an individual firefighter who went in showing all the signs of the toxicity poisoning, and they gave him a cyanokit, and he checked himself out in 12 hours. Went in unconscious, checked himself out in 12 hours. And it was completely normal. So it's more about learning how to prevent it and then having the cyanokit in case somebody gets exposed anyway.
Yeah, I agree. And, don't forget to use that cyanokit on that civilian smoke inhalation victim, too. We think about it for us. It's our tool. Well, you're absolutely right, Shane. Two things, if we're going to do this, this is Firefighting Today, and I am the host. So what about a shameless plug, right? So we got two podcasts on the subject. We got Rob Marshall from the Fire Smoke Coalition. You can go back and hear that episode. And I did a very good episode with Deputy Chief Tom Warren from the Providence Fire Department. As many of you know, Providence had a major incident. They did a pretty comprehensive study, I want to say, back in 2006 or thereabouts. So both of those podcasts are available. Ethan, what are your thoughts on this? You're doing some study. What are your thoughts on the wellness, the PTSD, the whole topic of where we've been here?
Well, I haven't really paid that much attention to it, or at least as much as I should have. I completely agree with you guys. I think it's something that we need to focus more attention on and definitely do some more about.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's see if we got something else. What's on your mind? Anybody got something else on their mind? Let's shift gears a little
Pete,
bit.
I got something here.
All right, shoot. Go ahead.
Going through the line of duties here, preparing for the show, something kind of stood out, and I don't know if I just want to see your thoughts on it. Going back 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, we're looking multiple fatality fires in terms of firefighter. You have walled bombs, all these, 5, 6, 7 LODD fires. Do you think that because of this, quote-unquote new research that's out here, do you think that the fire service is kind of experiencing a reduction in fire suppression-related LODDs, but specifically multiple LODDs, because of transitional attack, because we're paying attention to closing the door? I'd be curious to hear Joe's thoughts.
All right, let's throw that one right to Joe. I got a couple of thoughts on that. Go ahead, Joe. What are you thinking? Is the effect of the science having some effect on the reduction in multiples of LODDs?
It may very well have, and I certainly would want to sit here and say it does, but statistically, I don't see any evidence that that's directly correlative to it. I think the general attitude of the fire tactical commander as it grows helps that a lot. To your point, I think that's it is, as Brunacini used to say, if it doesn't hurt, it must help. I think it's early in that. I think it's doing some. I have never seen the amount of discussion swing as fast on this as this particular topic starting to swing. It's almost scary to the point because we tend to parrot things sometimes when we talk about them as opposed to understand them. So to your point, I think it may be, but I wouldn't be able to say that quantitatively anyway or empirically.
All right. I think Shane had a comment similar to I did. I think it's a little early. Shane, what are your thoughts?
Well, if as memory serves, some of the bigger ones have been more of commercial or industrial type locations. We get a lot of ones and some twos, but the Charleston 9 and Worcester disaster, and even going back to the Coconut Grove and some of those bigger events, they tend to be larger commercial size environments. And while some of the modern things are going to help with that, in my opinion, and I don't think there's been enough discussion about it, and I wish I could remember who to give the credit to this for, but I remember a discussion I had a couple of years ago where they showed a house fully involved, and they said you'd hit this with an 1.75 most likely, and then they showed another house next to it, and it becomes involved, and you hit that with another 1.75, and then they quickly they took these couple of structures next to each other and they put this big box over the top of it, and they're like, this is an industrial fire. Are you still using 1.75? And it kind of wakes you up that, oh, okay, wait a minute, we're not looking at residential type firefighting, and I caught myself about a month ago on a training fire. First thought was just I grabbed the 1.75, ran in, and as soon as I got inside, I went, why did I just grab an 1.75? This is the environment that we're supposed to be dealing with theoretically is not an 1.75 fire. I need to be having a 2.5-inch line in here at a minimum, and I need a couple extra bodies on this line. And once again, it's not a tactic that we train very much on. We don't pull the 2.5-inch line and handle it a lot and are used to it, so it's not ingrained in our memory. And you really need to change your thinking when you go into industrial and large commercial spaces. And I think those are Robert just pointed out the Station nightclub. That was a small commercial space, but it was still a commercial space. You had a large number of bodies in a small space, but I think the two can eventually overlap, but to my mind, the new studies are going to help us figure out why it's growing as fast as it is, but we still need to fight it differently. We need to be using larger water, larger attack streams, and being as aggressive and safe as we possibly can and knock it down as fast as possible.
Yeah, I would say we talked a little bit. Good stuff, Shane. Good stuff. I can't agree more. Ethan, I would say to you that two things in my mind. You think about a lot of the ones you're talking about are structural collapse. So I think training has helped. I think structural collapse training has helped. Right, a lot of these have been large commercials. Many of them have involved collapse, going back 72, back to the Vendome. It's killing 9, right, when entire sections of the building come down. The supermarket, the 23rd Street fire, all of these are collapse related. So I think that our training has helped. I do want to hit on two things. Warren hit something that I absolutely want to talk about alarm responses. But Rob, I want you to talk about what you were talking about. I think that the focus on size up of the incident commander training has helped reduce some of these multiples in my mind. Rob, you had a comment about size up.
Yeah, two things I'd like to point out, Pete, if I can. Number one, the size up of the building. What is the building telling us? We know that a supermarket or an ice rink or something like that is truss construction. Well, how far is this fire ahead of us? Should we even be in there? We know from reading and from experience and everything else that building is coming down. And if we have an extremely heavy fire condition, even a not so heavy fire condition, depending on what's burning, I read a fire the other day in a Home Depot. It was in the paint area of Home Depot. That thing was off to the races, and you want to talk about a perfect storm. The sprinkler system was being worked on. I believe it was an arson fire. Maybe we shouldn't even be in there. Maybe it's what? in a taxpayer, put the bucket of the tower ladder on the ground and shoot the nozzle up in there, and let's get a hit on this thing and see what's going on in there before we say, all right, guys, we're going to go marching in this building because that's the way we've always done, and we've been killing guys for years in the same scenario. Going back to the modern fire behavior, I brought up the Station nightclub. If we look back to 2003, I think it was Warren who brought up before that a lot of this stuff that we're talking about now is not new. Back in 2003, that Station nightclub, if you're a volunteer fireman, just to give you a little bit of idea of what went on that night, there was 100 people dead on the floor inside of that building, probably before your pager even went off. They're estimating from the time that fire started to the time there was 100 dead was 90 seconds. And it was, if you watch and you look, it was unsprinklered. And if you look about the fuel that was burning inside that building, that was modern fire behavior 101. Because when they recreated it and you looked at it, you could watch absolutely everything off gas. You could watch the thermal layer drop all of a sudden, and then it lit up like that, and it was over. Those people never had a chance.
Right. Let's get to Warren. We got a comment from the audience, but Warren, your comment is you're talking about management and chief officers or whatever. Why are we sending two engines and a ladder and a squad or an ambulance or something to our first alarms? Have we changed our first alarm discussion? So go ahead, talk about that a little bit, Warren.
Well, I think some departments have looked like that, and the example I gave was we have houses in a lot of areas now that are between 15 and 20,000 square feet. Well, how big is a grocery store? I mean, we're starting to get houses that are bigger than a lot of, especially smaller towns. They're commercial spaces, and yet we're sending a normal residential response that it's going to get overwhelmed if there's anything to that fire. Even if they're going to do a defensive attack, they probably don't have enough people on scene to effectively protect the exposures. And, because we are also seeing the McMansions, as people call them. Well, what's the lot line separation? The radiant heat's off gas and then igniting the one next door. So we need to rethink that. And when you do pre-plan your areas and your fire alarm system is, you should probably consider commercial responses for anything over 5,000 square feet for a residential.
Right, and that's not too uncommon these days with these large structures, right? They, I had an entire area that had the average footprint in this whole development in my area was somewhere around 7,000 square feet per residential structure. So, that's a big deal. So, Ethan, I don't know if we handled it. We went a lot of places, but I think training has made a difference. I'm not sure it's the research. Did that answer your query?
Yeah, it did.
Okay, good. We have a youngster with us that needs to be answered. I'm not going to take a lot of time, but we do have somebody near and dear to our panel member. So we have Courtney, who is one of the juniors or explorers, and she's talking about, if you're the first person, she's a young student of the trade here. And so the answer, Courtney, is a couple of things. Your procedure will probably tell you, but the most common answer is that you should pull past the building and see three sides. You see the side you approached, you see the front of the building as you pass it, and you should look over your shoulder and see the other side. So you will be able to see three sides and still be within your hose length to be able to fight the fire. So good question. Thanks for that. We got a couple of minutes. What else? We got a quick one. Anybody got a quick one that they want to try to hit?
Yeah, I wanted to bring up the slicers. The NIST has come up with not the NIST. Based on the NIST studies, the International Fire Service Instructors have come up with the new slicers, and I have no problem with it personally, but I understand that there's a little rift going on in the fire service because rescue is not placed at the #1 priority location. It's been tasked as where it fits most naturally to that individual call, and I just want to see what everybody else's feeling is on that.
Sure, I think that's a valid discussion. I will not be able to participate early on in the discussion because I will be nauseous So I will be I will be unable to comment on the need for another acronym when we had a couple of good ones already. But I do take issue with the development of an acronym, the way it was done. But you know, it's out there and it's got a lot of traction. So you know, good for it. Anybody want to jump on the slices discussion as it relates to? Right, there was a tactical acronym called RECIO VS. And that hung around since 1950s, late 50s or so, and now we have this one for an attack mode. Anybody want to jump in on that, Warren? You want to dive in on slices?
Sure. I think it has some merit, because even with RECIO, if you're using the information you get during your size up, and you know, somebody gives you other information because the occupant walked up and told you there's nobody inside, or little Johnny's still in the bedroom or whatever, rescue wasn't necessarily your first priority anyway. It was first to think about, but not necessarily under RECIO the first to be executed. You may have found during the size up, yeah, I have a rescue. If I take care of the fire downstairs, I take care of the rescue problem upstairs, you know, while we're getting the ladder to get them. So you had simultaneous tasks going on. Slicers, I think, puts people more into the mindset of let's not get the big eye and focus exclusively on the rescue and forget about everything else that may be just as important as to affecting that rescue. You may just displace it in time, if that makes sense. Right. So I think it has merit, but I don't think we should forget about RECIO either. I think they're not mutually exclusive by any means. I think slicers is just a new way of thinking about the fireground tactics, and it all boils down to the intelligence you get during your size up and how you execute things.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Shane, you had a good explanation about RECIO for one and slices for the other, so go ahead.
Well, yeah, I was just going to mention that it seems to me, looking at the two, RECIO's was more of a strategic. I realize that Warren was just saying it was a tactical thing, and it is as well. But I've always felt it was more of the strategic. The incident commander comes up on scene, okay, prioritize. We're going to do this, 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 and this, and kind of do them in this order as best as possible with what information I have. And I'm really looking at the slicers as being more of the your crew chief, your right seater, as their strategic goals based on the tactics that they've been given. Maybe I'm being a little, maybe I'm trying to justify it too much, but it just makes more sense in my mind to look at it that way.
Yeah, no. Listen, you know what? We do. It's not my cup of tea, but I want to express everybody's opinion. I want all sides of the discussion here. So, Rob, you got something you want to dive in?
I think that we need to remember that an acronym is just a tool to maybe help you remember something. It's not an SOP. It's you're not going to go down that list. Okay, I did my size up. Now I'm going to locate the fire. Okay, that's where it is now. I'm going to close the door now. No, it's not. It's just a vehicle to help us remember things when it's on and the adrenaline is rushing a little bit and you might start forgetting things. It's not a tactical thing that we're going to actually go and do line by line.
No, exactly.
Excellent. Well said, Rob. I think that was good. Absolutely. Quick one. I do have to backtrack one more before we end up closing down. I apologize for that, but I do want to get to Johnny's comment for two reasons. One of them is, Shane, you realize if a person agrees with you 10 times on the panel, you get a T-shirt. So this is one, right?
I got one. Thank you, Johnny.
Johnny says, I agree with Shane. So, all right, we got one. I'm keeping track for you. But the 2.5-inch line needs to be thinking about for commercial buildings, but residentials with the large floor plans, and he was talking about that. And really, he's talking about that it comes down to training, and the rest of his comment is we need to train with the 2.5 as much as we do with the 1 3/4. Being proficient in the basics and training are our best ways to reduce combat-related LODDs. So thank you for that, Johnny. You're right on board with the panel. Absolutely. So we're getting close to the end. Any want to put the ribbons on the slices thing? Anybody? Yeah, Joe, you have a thought on fire behavior? I'm
Yeah,
surprised to hear that, but go ahead.
I think you and I had this conversation this week. I really think what we need is to understand that what we're learning is just another critical fireground factor. I don't think we're doing anything different. I think we're just having to approach the tactics to deal with the fireground factor. The hoarding is a fireground factor. Vent-limited fire is a fireground factor. Now, because the heat release rate is so high, we cannot deal with it. We can't relieve the overpressure with our typical standard venting operation. So I think we're just dealing with critical fireground factors. As our environment changes and as our training changes and our tools change, this week they just came out with a low frequency fire extinguisher. I thought that was really good. Your base woofers that we've been having in these cars now will extinguish fires. I think those are absolutely wonderful concepts, but I don't know when we will ever use them. The bottom line is it's just a new fireground factor. If we don't have to, like Brenda says, we don't have to go through a major personality change here. We just got to deal with what the fire's doing. It's not new. It's not new physics. It's old stuff. It's just got a new fire load. It's the same old formula with a different factor in it. That's what it is.
Yep, I think you're right. All right, well, we're approaching the end. I think I'll leave it right there. Joe, you win. You got the last word on us. I think that's a good one. And we will see you next week on Firefighting Today, the weekly roundtable. I appreciate everybody who watched us out in the audience. You can find our archives at firefightingtoday.com. All of the past shows are there. Feel free to jump over there and take a look at what we have been doing. So with that, be safe this week, and we will see you back here next week at 8 p.m. Eastern.